The Planning Commission is meeting at the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Government Center, 600 East 4th Street here in Charlotte, North Carolina, room 267. For viewing by the public and media, today's meeting is being streamed live on the Planning, Design, and Development Department's YouTube page. We will begin with introductions, and I think I will begin with our commissioners, starting from my right.
Philip Gusman, Vice Chair.
Shauna Neely, Planning Committee.
Andrew Blumenthal, Planning Commission.
Will Russell, Planning Commission.
Douglas Wilson, Planning Commission.
Melissa Gaston, Planning Commission.
Terry Lansdale, Planning Commission.
Clayton Seeley, Planning Commission.
Courtney Rhodes, Planning Commission.
And with staff, starting from my left.
Candace Roy, Planning.
Allison Craig, Interim Planning Director.
Siobhan Davis, Planning Staff.
We have some other members of the planning department joining us in the room currently as spectators, but we'll jump in with their presentations a little bit later. We need a motion to approve the minutes from our last regularly scheduled work session, which was in July. Seems like eons ago, 2022. If everyone has had an opportunity to review, I will accept a motion, please.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Gusman.
Motion by Gusman, second by Welton. All in favor, please raise your hand. Any nays? None. That passes unanimous. Thank you. Jumping right into our agenda here, and thank you all for hanging in with us. We had some technical difficulties, so we're starting a little bit late. Our work program is established every year. Usually at our annual retreat, we do a soft draft that happened back in September 9th, 2022.
Sounds right.
And for your reference and review, you were provided a copy of the work program to adopt in your email last week. And I will accept comments from each of our commissioners during this meeting. And I'm going to begin from my left. We will review, I think, focus areas independently, just to make sure everyone understands, and then we'll accept comments on each of those focus areas. There are 6 focus areas for fiscal year 2023. And Mr. Vice Chair, if you could please review item number 1 and open us up for discussion.
Certainly. This would be the, Planning Commission, Community Engagement and Education. This really was driven by our continued experiences with some of our past large efforts, Comp Plan 2040 and the UDO, at making sure that we can continue to serve as a voice of communication and understanding both ways with the community as well as our city staff. Anyone have any questions about this? I can read this just as well as the rest of you, but I think it's better that we get into any conversation or debate, concern, etc. So at its core, we'll be trying to get out in the public. We'll participate in some community town halls. This will require more participation than some past commissions have had. And getting out there, making sure we're making it to meetings and making sure we're listening, both sides.
Concerning the measures of success, are there any concerns? And I will note that item number B should read that that's a minimum of 3. There may be more if we identify more opportunities for these partnerships. But does anybody have any concerns or questions around objectives, measures of success?
Would these occur in these regular timings or would this be sporadic?
Good question. So these are outside of our normal work sessions. These are usually going to be events partnering with county commission or city council members as they are out in the community connecting with their constituents. If planning department is out, I think as part of the comp plan, or was it UDO that we had staff attend like 24 hours of booty, like just those random spots that we haven't been able to reach certain parts of our city for feedback, just being able to collect where we can. But when I say co-host, that means actively participate in the planning of. So as we are, again, not interfering or intervening or necessarily leading. Now, I will say too that sometimes it will be us leading and requesting that staff, hey, can you please support us by sending a member of, Team UDO or Team Comp Plan to our event. So I just wanted to be clear that these are all outside of our normal work session activities. And obviously, this is not a requirement that each of you attend every single thing that's happening. That I'm very conscious of the request that I'm making on you guys' time. But I think that we're in a really unique space in these last couple of years where folks are inquiring more, folks are taking more interest, folks are needing a deeper understanding. And I think we can be a resource and alleviate some bandwidth and resources that staff is using to kind of handle those things. So it's going to be very intentional. And I just wanted to put that as part of our work program. In previous years, we've done this more on an unofficial, hey, are you happen to be attending this or that? But I think being more intentional regarding these efforts is really important for us in this phase of implementation of the comp plan. Any other questions, comments?
This is Commissioner Rhodes. I have a question about plan and host public meetings. Do we want to put a number on the amount of public meetings that we have? So like we're co-hosting 3 public meetings. Do we want to put a firm number of the public meetings that we want to plan and host?
That's open for discussion. Any thoughts on that?
I do.
What might that number be?
4.
Okay, so the suggestion I think I'm hearing is that item number A should read plan at least 4, plan and host at least 4 public meetings. Okay, so if we're going to have a number certain, then a start certain should be added. I think we touched on that at the retreat, and I think my recommendation was somewhere around November, December. That's tomorrow. So I want everybody's feedback on that because I'm going to be looking for you. So let's hear some discussion around the when. Do we do this quarterly? If we're recommending 4. Now, keep in mind also, this is outside of UDO and comp plan. If we need to come back and put that in a parking lot for now until we revisit number 2, because I don't want that to be confused.
Commissioner Clayton, Commissioner Seeley, I honestly think it's important for us to see when we have the most likelihood of engagement. I would think during the holidays, we're not going to have that many people engaging. So this should be something that we have between the spring and fall,
Okay.
or spring and early winter kind of thing. But I mean, even early winter is getting close to the holidays.
Okay.
So maybe it is really spring to fall.
Okay. I think some of my thought process during the retreat came from the timeline for the kickoff for engagement of area planning, community area planning, which will begin in January, trying to get ahead of that. We have also, Commissioner Gusman has also heard news that council members are starting their town hall meetings already. Some of them are planned for November. And that's an opportunity for us to request to be tagged into some of those events. So yes, the most of what we do will probably be in the spring after the kickoff, but I don't necessarily want to wait until then.
I think we engage any significant opportunity. And to your point, I think that was actually the core of, we should do this when people are able and going to be attending anyway, if possible. So I don't disagree. I know. I think,
So
I like 4. I think 4 should feel, and we should be trying to have them pretty consistently over the next 6
In,
months, honestly.
in my mind, and you all know what happens there.
it's a dangerous. place.
There's January, there's April, there's July, and there is October. And none of those are holidays. The scale and scope of these meetings can be used to meet Clayton's measure. And we don't have to have a big meeting in a big room. America has a lovely third room now called brewery. And the previous third room we had was called coffee shop. And we can have meetings in those places that would allow us to meet the objectives of having 4 meetings a year. And I think that in a lot of ways, those would be more successful than gathering up 100 people or 200 people for a meeting downstairs in the government center.
I think I would definitely stop shy of putting a place certain on any of these objectives, because I don't picture maybe the first one being in the government center, but after that, it's where the people are. But also, everyone keep in mind that our fiscal year ends in June. So everything that's on this work program, time certain is June 30th as a sunset date. So what we do in next year's work program won't be up to me, but obviously these are things that I want to initiate in this year that will likely continue in perpetuity.
And the reason I said those dates is because to me, this is something that we add to and exemplifies the growth of this board, as opposed to is a task that we complete for this year. If we grow our abilities and extend our ability to engage the community, that's a capability that we have, and we shouldn't just say, oh, the fiscal year has ended, we don't have that capability anymore. And so I would simply say we're planning to do this ad infinitum.
Okay, so do we want to wrap up what the suggestion is for item A under measure of success for work focused program? I'm sorry, work focused item number 1.
Madam Chair, I have a quick question.
Yes.
When we define public meetings, is that official public meetings with due notice recording, or is that just a general, in quotes, public meeting?
No, these are noticed meetings.
I have a quick follow-up as well. You mentioned earlier that number 1 and 2 on the work plan are separate, which they are. I understand that as work plan items. I don't see why they can't overlap. In the sense that under the objectives, right, 1.2, our work plan item number 2 is kind of enveloped into that, right? In terms of the future 2040 plan and UDO conversations. A, and then B, I don't think that it would be out of line for us to kind of use some of those, whether they're existing or we plan them ourselves, but whether it's the CAP and the AR meetings, to kind of demonstrate how the Planning Commission operates in that capacity. So I think that, to work with whether it's council members or whoever else, elected officials, that we could overlap with them. And in fact, it might be even more efficient and impactful to do so at some of those forums. And that could be one of our quote 4 official meetings.
Yes, and I envision that happening, like if we are attacking focus area number 2 in terms of engagement, it could suffice that it also kills 2 birds with 1 stone, so to speak. But the reason why I delineated them is because, to your point, yes, my focus is to make sure that people understand that the Planning Commission is a resource. UDO, comp plan, all of that out of the way, the Planning Commission is a resource for the community. And that is what number 1 more focuses on. Now, will we discuss the business of UDO and comp plan as we're doing focus area number 1? Absolutely.
No, that makes perfect sense. I just think that, not that this is something that needs to be fleshed out today, but as you start to think through, all right, so say we meet in November and it's not specifically about the community area planning or something like that. And you start to think through the structure of what one of these meetings with the community for the commission would look like.
Mhm.
Is it just a meet and greet? It's kind of like, here's what we do, but does that really incentivize people to come? I think it might be hard to get people to show up, to be honest. Not to diminish ourselves, but like,
We've
people don't
already
like us that
learned.
much.
We've already learned that some of the items under our purview are some of the most technical. We know there are certain people that will show up. We learned that through the comp plan engagement process, through the UDO engagement process, but this is our opportunity to kind of reach people and say, hey, did you also know that we do this? Did you also know that we do that? The community area planning process, this can't be a miss. And it's kind of one of those, while we're doing that, let's do this too. Let's establish a baseline for which we can do this and build our audience, so to speak.
No.
Some people
agreed.
don't even know that some people think we work for the city.
Mhm.
And so it's just a matter of, again, just building our own audience and making sure that people recognize that the Planning Commission is a resource. So having said that, we've got a lot more to go and we started a little bit late. So I just want to put this in a nice little bow on it, if you don't mind. Are we suggesting that for measure of success, item A, plan and host public meetings, we want a number 4 there, in addition to item B, co-hosting 3 public meetings? Is that the understanding? Okay.
That's what
Okay.
I'm
Yes, that's the
saying.
understanding.
Then,
Yeah, and I have one point of clarity.
okay.
Does this meeting count as one of those 4 if I invite 20 of my friends to come to it?
No, because at the top of this, I pointed out that these, in my head, these are
Okay.
all outside of our work session programming.
Okay, and I'm just getting outside of your head because that's where I live. But yeah, I just suggest it because that, it's a possibility.
Nothing precludes you from doing that.
Okay, all right.
Okay. Any other questions? So friendly edit to A under measure of success for focus area 1 is we're going to put a number certain of 4, plan and host 4. And item B under measure of success, are we good there? Target schedule. You can't see that up on the board, but it basically says beginning December 22 and bi-monthly thereafter. That was a friendly suggestion on my part, but again, open to discussion.
I think we can start the co-hosting of the public meetings in December. If commissioners are already having town hall meetings, we can collaborate with them on that. I think that's an easy win for us when it comes to the co-hosting.
Then should we put beginning November because they're beginning in November?
At least the first one I've heard about has been proposed.
Yeah.
Commissioner Russell, I would agree. I would think that the co-hosting would be something that we look at for the rest of the year. And then think about actually planning our own any standalone event at the beginning of the year, because you're going to need that time to adequately understand it.
So for item number A, beginning January 23.
Yes.
And I would think that, we don't all 14 of us, in theory, have to show up for a a council member's planned thing, we will pick for convenience the ones that are probably closest to us. And if there are two of us there, then we stand up, we say X, Y, and Z. And I think that gets us easy, cheap wins.
Agreed.
I just want to make sure co-host doesn't mean saying, hey, I'm here in the room. Co-host means you're part of the agenda. Co-host means you're part of the planning process likely. Co-host, that word it's there. So
Right.
simply attending, that's something that you can do in addition to, but I just want to clarify
But when
co-hosting.
every time I see a council member having a town hall, it appears to come to me already baked, and they have, we're bringing X, Y, and Z.
That means you get,
But nobody gets top billing with the councilman.
And we're not saying we get top billing.
Yeah.
It's more that they know we're introduced, perhaps we have prepared statements.
Yeah.
Et cetera. You're
Okay.
part of the program.
Yeah, and
not-
that's what I'm saying. They're gonna, those meetings are usually an hour and a half. So they're not gonna want us to give an hour-long presentation. They're gonna want us to take 15 minutes, and then people are gonna ask questions.
I think it's probably more like 5 and ask questions, but you're right. And honestly, that is part of our role, is helping answer those questions that city councilmen and county commissioners are, honestly, they're in the weeds on some of this stuff. We can, at least through our experience. Now, keep in mind, we need to make sure and we'll talk more about this as we start to get into it, but it's not just espousing view. We do need to make sure we're operating within our purview as a commission.
okay. So I think we're done with work program focus item number 1. Excuse me. Number 2, support and promote public engagement efforts around community area planning and the alignment rezonings. I think that is somewhat self-explanatory. Is there any discussion?
Yep, I have a question. So, and excuse me for not being at the retreat, but is the community area planning going to be similar to the small area plans that we did previously? And I have a follow-up question after that. That's for staff.
So Allison will address that question. There are 15 there will be 15 area plans. One of them is already baked, done, adopted by council, and that's Center City. So there's 14 area plans that the planning staff will very ambitiously work to be able to complete in 2 years.
Okay, so let me just get to the text of the crux of my issue with that. So having been a part of an area plan several years ago, I know that we got wonderful community engagement of Northeast Charlotte for an area plan. There was a lot of excitement about changing the area. And we actually did that plan before development came. So that was wonderful. The problem was there was no way to implement it because it did not have the power of zoning. It was a policy statement only. And so now here, 6 years after this adoption and implementation, there are still questions about how come we don't get X that came out of our community area plan. And the answer has always been that is a zoning question, that is a zoning issue. This policy doesn't have the force. It is a regulation. And as you know, policy has no force of law. Zoning regulation does. So how do we implement some kind of regulation into these plans so they can be enforced and that people can have ownership in them? Because right now they're just something nice to do.
Okay, so that's a lot, and I do regret that you missed a retreat and planning committee meeting this past September planning committee meeting where staff went through timelines. One of the best things that I will enjoy about this community area planning process is exactly it kind of helps to solve the problem that you just described. We now have the zoning by which we can do area plans. So the UDO was adopted. Remember, its implementation doesn't start for another 8 months. And while Staff works behind the scenes on technical stuff and getting everybody kind of ready for that process. Community area plans can kind of marry up to zoning, so to speak. So it is the comp plan and the UDO that will lead the area planning process. So you're not trying to put in stuff that you know that can't be accomplished in your area plans. Now, I won't put the area planning process under the indictment here, and we can take this offline for further discussion. But in terms of affixing here, I want to know specifically, do you have a question or concern about this process?
Yes. I want to know if the community area planning process that we're going through, that when that document comes out, that it is enforceable. It's not just a recommendation like it is now.
Okay, so that's not going to be part of the work program. Again, I want to speak specifically to the work program item. So this item, as a part of the retreat, we felt it necessary. Now, this is under our purview anyway. We probably would have been doing some form version of this anyways, but to really keep it in focus and to make sure that we're all contributing to the process, we decided to put this as a work program focus. So reviewing the engagement plans, making sure that we can capture as many pieces of feedback as possible, assisting in amplifying staff's engagement efforts without running interference is really important, and also helping to distribute and share information so that we can assist our communities with creating the plan that works best for their communities. That is the goal of number 2. So again, speaking specifically about this work program item, this is not to adopt an area plan. This is not to run the process of the area plan. This is to be a resource for staff and community.
Okay, well, if that's the case, then I think that we also need to take an educational bent on doing community area planning. There's one thing that people know about in Charlotte, that's development, but very few, if any, understand it. And so I think it's better to have us in an educational role, where it's almost like a lecture or a question and response, so that people real time can get a chance to understand and ask questions on a level that they would not get to at a public meeting. I've actually run something similar in my neighborhood, and it's had pretty good effects. So I think we need to approach it as an authority, approach it as, here's your education. This is what zoning is. This is what CAP does, and this is how it affects your community, so that we have the ability to push forward the points that you've listed on the screen.
So Candace, can you scroll back to item number 1? Work program focus, planning commission, community engagement, and education. What you just described is what Commissioner Gusman and Welton and I have been working on for the past 3 or 4 years. The frustration that we have when people are not as informed as we'd like them to be when they bring forth a problem or an issue. So I appreciate those comments, but that's exactly what number 1 is intended to do.
Understood. I just want to make sure that we're also doing that for number 2, because it needs to be specific to community area planning, because that's what people are going to care the most. They're not going to care in the abstract about development in Charlotte. They will care about how it affects their local community and what does it do to my property values. So
please accept a friendly amendment then to measure of success item D, attend public engagement events hosted by PDD, that's planning, design, and development. I'm sorry for the acronym there, but just for the benefit of the public, PDD is planning, design, and development, to assist in capturing public comment and offering ourselves as a resource for education. I want to be very explicit though, when making mention that as we're hosting our public events, we will have to tag team with staff, being very conscious of that bandwidth when we're attending events that are hosted by PDD, that we are not running interference. We're there as in a complementary measure. And I just want to reiterate that. So capturing public comment, and I feel like that's a bit redundant though, offering ourselves. Do we need an amendment? Does number 1 satisfy what your comment references.
In the case of this document, it does. I just want to make sure that we're also doing or add education to number 2 as well. Whether you could just put it in a title, it'd be fine with me.
Okay.
Perhaps we add it to the objective then. I mean, even if it's as simple as support and promote the public engagement, education efforts around community area planning, et cetera.
Sounds good.
Acceptable.
Item number 2 buttoned up. Item number 3. Any questions, comments? I don't think there's many edits there. Nobody? Excellent. Number 4. Number 4, fiscal year 2023 commissioner suggested focus areas. That should be a little typo there. So this was, it says fiscal year 2022 in the number.
That's for 4, 5, and 6. That's 2020.
Oh, thanks. So as you may recall at the retreat, one of the items that we all agreed that we should tackle is to freshen up our adopted environment and sustainability statement, number 1, and number 2, to figure out how to establish a subcommittee that focuses, that keeps a laser focus on environment and sustainability issues as they pertain to items under our purview. As we kind of talk through that a little bit offline after the retreat, we had to break these out into several items because number 1, we have to figure out, can we legally establish a subcommittee under our current interlocal agreement? And even if we can't today, I wanted the work to continue to figure out how, even after, if interlocal agreement prevents us from doing so, after that's fixed, what is the best way to establish? What does that committee look like? What exactly is their charge? Having all of those things defined now so that when we do get interlocal agreement, if it's preventing us from doing that, when we get that area addressed, hit the ground running right then and there. What I aspire to is that we complete items A through E, that we propose to the governing bodies. So for those less familiar and for the benefit of the public, the charge of the Planning Commission is defined in the interlocal agreement. The interlocal agreement, the 2 governing bodies are Mecklenburg County Board of County Commissioners and Charlotte City Council. The Planning Commission in and of themselves, in and of this body, cannot change the interlocal agreement. It is up to those 2 bodies. So if we make proposals to revise or amend the interlocal agreement to make space for establishing the subcommittee, if that is necessary, then we figure out, we hash out all of that, make the proposals for them to be able to adopt this fiscal year or amend in this fiscal year. So having the work already done in preparation for what I'm thinking of is a hurdle, so to speak, would be necessary. And then even if we figure out that IA won't allow us to do it and council and Board of County Commission are not willing to amend, then maybe it is simply a subcommittee for the work program, which does not require anything but commission approval and adoption. So there's a lot in the measures of success for that reason. Floor is open for discussion.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Lansdale, I've got several issues with the timeline. I appreciate you putting the timelines for B and C and D for February 2023. I think that's supposed to be 2023 again, but are you as chair writing the sustainability statement update?
No, so under measure of success, you see that item A says to establish a fiscal year 23 work program subcommittee to lead and present to the commission findings and information on all items in focus area 4. So basically, and historically, what we've done with our work program is for every focus area, we would have commissioners volunteer themselves to serve as a subcommittee on these different focus areas. That subcommittee would contain 3 or 4 commissioners. Ideally, they can't be, or actually legally, they can't be of the same subcommittee. Like we couldn't have 4 zoning committee members on one subcommittee, for instance, or vice versa for the planning committee. So basically, establishing that subcommittee is the first thing that we would do as we attacked these items. And that is why item A has to be done fairly immediately.
Great,
I
thank
can
you
I
guys
can
a
add
lot.
on to that, Terry. So as the author of the first statement, it will be an update to an already existing environmental and sustainability statement. It won't be drafted fresh. One thing that we want to work on as a part of this environmental subcommittee is pushing for all new commission members to be provided drafts of all of our existing statements when they join, because from what I'm hearing from you, clearly that did not happen. So, and again, something, the notebook that we all got to retreat, right, for that to be incorporated, because the environmental statement is one of several that we actually have already adopted as a full commission. So my understanding, and this chairperson goes back to you, Kiba, is that I think it'd be a very reasonable goal to have our subcommittee established next month and at our meeting next month, and to know from that point on exactly who's going to be on it. I think we know that I'll be on it. I don't see February and subsequently April as unreasonable goals. If anything happens, then we'll keep you posted if that needs to get pushed by a month or so. But again, we're working with an existing statement that, could have minimal revision, could have a full rewrite in theory. But, in terms of working with the 2 committees, planning committee, zoning committee, on how that can be further integrated. And then, the definition of what a future subcommittee's purview might be, those are all conversations that we should and need to have. And I don't think it needs to take longer than February. In terms of the legal side of it and the interlocal agreement, that's what I know less about. So we'll need to lean on you, the vice chair, and staff on kind of what the next steps needs to look like there, because I don't know as much about that. But I don't think that the timeline as written here is going to be an issue. And I think that it covers kind of what we discussed at retreat well.
Thank you, Commissioner Blumenthal. And to your point, yes, it first is up to legal. We've already reached out to Assistant City Attorney, partner to the commission, and she will be joining us next month for our meeting. Couldn't make this meeting. I have also initiated communication with the School of Government to kind of weigh in and help advise. Commissioner Lansdale.
A follow-up on C, can you provide any examples of checklists for rezoning, or want to try to understand what you want as the end result? I feel like if you have a vision, it would be great to have you share that vision with examples from other communities who are doing the thing that you're asking in items B and C.
So I can jump in on that one as well. And with the knowledge that you have yet to be on the zoning committee, but once you have that opportunity, you'll see that right now, we have the 10 goals of the 2040 comprehensive plan, and each of the petitions is run through those 10 goals as essentially a checklist. Does it meet that objective? Does it not? Or is it not applicable? So full disclosure, this was kind of my initial thought, right? And the subcommittee could completely change this. But my thought was to kind of work with staff and any other relevant bodies to develop something of a checklist that each of the rezoning petitions could go through as it relates to environmental and sustainability issues. I don't know exactly what those are. I don't know what they need to be, but I thought that was one quantitative way to measure rezoning petitions from an environmental and sustainability lens. I know less how that applies to the planning committee's decisions, but again, that's a conversation for the subcommittee and then subsequently the commission at large.
Thanks. As we review with the city attorney about the interlocal agreement, can we make sure that this also passes muster for the state law as well associated with zoning? Thanks.
Any other questions or discussion, clarity needed on focus area number 4? Okay, moving right along. Number 5. Transportation and mobility. We also have a transportation and mobility adopted statement. All of our adopted statements, we have one for affordable housing as well. All of our adopted statements, just again, as a reminder to public and to our newer commissioners, we have adopted those statements to help guide our decision-making. So we're as we are making recommendations to staff on the different initiatives, we're to look at things through those 3 lenses, so to speak. So as we're looking at rezoning petitions, can we make considerations or that focus on our environmental and sustainability efforts, affordable housing efforts? Obviously, that can't go into rezonings, but as we are baking the comp plan, for instance, that was one of the things that we use as a basis for some of the feedback that we provided. We have these adopted statements by which we want to keep focus on those 3 areas. I think that, and I said this many times, I feel like you just can't stress it enough that the work that this commission does, the charge that we have, is different from any advisory body. And some of the decisions that we make, they infiltrate other focus areas like water quality, land development. Just it touches so many things. And I just wanted to make sure that we keep fresh those adopted statements and that we continue to strengthen them as needed. And last year, Board of County Commission actually applied funding to environment and sustainability. That's actually, I meant to share this with you all as well. There's an engagement process happening now that Board of County Commission is undertaking. They're soliciting public feedback to go into their own environmental justice plan. So please look into that. I don't have, I think the next meetings are going to be at East Rec Center, their public engagement session. So just wanted to make mention of that. But going back to our work program, these adopted statements, again, they just help us keep focused. They help remind us to be able to look at things as we are deciding, as we are providing comment, as we are providing recommendations, that we're responsible for a lot. And so the environmental and sustainability statement, again, is just to keep focused on how we look at things and to help us look at things through that lens. We were at item number 5, I think. Transportation and mobility, that's where I started. And that was another one of our charges, is to make sure that as we are looking at these area plans, as we are adopting long-range plans like the 2040 comprehensive plan, that we make special considerations to transportation mobility efforts. In our interlocal agreement, we are provided a seat at the table, so to speak, on CARPO. It's an ex officio role, but we need to make an appointment there. We'll do that at the end of this, close to the end of the agenda. But keeping in tune to the TAP committee, Transportation Planning Committee for Council, that's a pretty much a permanent subcommittee of council. And just making sure that we are in tune to what their discussions are, what they're considering, and what is being brought forth to TAP, to make sure that we're not caught by surprise by certain initiatives that may be coming our way, just to get ahead. Before the pandemic, we had an established member who would attend those meetings, make notes, bring back to the commission any relevant information needed for our purview and our charge. And I'm trying to get back to that. But to stretch that just a little bit, keeping in tune to what CATS may be doing with Silver Line, that those efforts will come to us anyways, but just staying pretty much one step ahead in terms of what may be coming before the full commission, and providing that information on a quarterly basis or on an as needed basis. So getting back to some sort of normalcy for the Planning Commission, to stay ahead of some of the initiatives that may be coming our way, or to bring forth to the commission things that are not coming our way, but we still need to keep in consideration. I'm looking for a member of this commission that would volunteer to be that person. We can't all be in all places at the same time, but someone who would accept the charge for this fiscal year to be that person to bring forth information on transportation and mobility efforts. This can be the same person as the CARPO appointment, or it can be someone in addition to. So as you all are considering nominating yourselves, please keep that in mind. CARPO is, I think those meetings run 2 hours minimum, 3 hours sometimes. It's scheduled for 2 hours. And I think it's on third Wednesday of the month. So we are somewhat required to have a CARPO appointment in an ex officio manner. This is outside of what that person may do, or complementary to what that person may do. So with that, do we have any person willing to nominate themselves or nominate another commissioner? And this doesn't have to be done today, but it definitely has to be done no later than our meeting in November. November 7th is, November 14th is our meeting, our work session meeting. So floor is open. Okay, so as you think about it, I will expect there to be one of you. I've had conversations with many of you, and I know some of you have passions for transportation mobility initiatives, efforts, issues, things of that nature. So I look forward to getting
Madam
those
Chair.
nominations in.
Madam Chair, I'll volunteer for that.
Thank you, Commissioner Lansdale. I appreciate that. So we can now consider item number 8 already completed ahead of schedule. Thank you, Commissioner Lansdale. All right. Any questions on the remainder of item focus area 5? Okay, and last but not least, focus area number 6. As part of the discussion around environment and sustainability, we recognize that well, first, all of you understand why our monthly work session had to move. We kind of got bumped for more important things. As such, our rules of procedure need to be updated, because now we don't meet first Monday of every month anymore, and there are certain things that are outdated in our rules of procedure. So this was a good time for us to kind of refresh and update our rules of procedure. That is an internal to this commission task. That doesn't require the approval, obviously, of legal, but that our rules of procedure are adopted by commission. And then as part of the environmental and sustainability proposed subcommittee, reviewing the interlocal agreement is something that when Candace sent me it was in reverse. Reviewing the interlocal agreement was on here, and I think we exchanged, it's supposed to be a 1.2 on here also. So item 1.2 will read, review the interlocal agreement for necessary and or preferred revisions of the commission. The reason why those have to be delineated is because of who adopts them. So rules of procedure, again, here amongst this dais, interlocal agreement is outside of our ability and authority. There is some question again around whether or not the interlocal agreement will allow the establishment of a subcommittee. So again, working with school of government and city legal staff will help us figure that out. But as we were reviewing the interlocal agreement, it hasn't been updated or even touched, I don't think, since 2013. It's nearly 10 years ago. This was part of our 2021 work program that we were not able to deliver on. So there is some work that has been started. There are some notes so that we don't have to reinvent the wheel as it pertains to adding that as a work program item. But that's certainly more of a long game. So it will take some time to be able to come up with some proposed recommended changes or revisions to the interlocal agreement. Rules of procedure, probably may be able to be delivered prior to March. But one of the other reasons why I wanted to explore rules of procedure is, again, working with city staff to figure out, is there a way? Everyone got spoiled with the pandemic, right? Being able to attend meetings from home and not have to get all freshened up to be TV ready. But is there an opportunity for us to have one of our many required meetings to be attendance requirement to be met by attending a meeting virtually or telephonically? We explored this about 3 years ago, and there are other municipalities in the state of North Carolina that do it. So we do have somewhat of a precedent or a model, but again, partnering with school of government, legal staff, and the bottom line, I think from what I understand, will maybe be that we always have to mirror what council does. That's basically the unwritten rule currently, that city's legal staff will not amen something that even council doesn't have the privilege of doing. So, but it's still worth exploring. Again, that was 3 years ago. Now we've gone through a whole pandemic. Now we've gone through a whole electronic update, and staff has had to figure out how to get that, because that was also part of the contention, was how does staff even make that work? Now I think there is a better understanding around that point. And so to revisit that part as part of rules of procedure, I think would be worthy as well. So again, 1.1 is as written. 1.2, you're basically exchanging rules of procedure for interlocal agreement. So again, 1.2 is not there, but it will be in our adopted version. Floor is open.
Isn't council going to talk about their rules tonight? or it was sometime soon. Is it tonight? I mean, that may make that first point decided for us or something. Yeah. And I may be misremembering, so.
No, I think that will help guide what we do.
I was trying to get to the
But-
agenda, but
As I remember, there are commissioners who are equipped to challenge the status quo. And if there are other municipalities that enjoy the ability to attend telephonically or virtually, then even if council decides to make in person the continued norm, that doesn't mean we can't explore our ability.
Yes, it's on the council agenda for this evening.
okay. Yeah.
Any other discussion, thoughts, feedback, recommended revisions, edits, suggestions?
Would you like a motion?
Going once, going thrice. The next step is to be able to put forth a motion to adopt with suggested edits, the work program.
I would like to make such a motion.
Second.
Motion by Gusman, second by Blumenthal. All in favor, raise your hand, please. Any nays? Seeing and hearing none, the work program is adopted. We actually did it in October. I'm so happy about that. Usually doesn't happen until November. Thank you all for your input, feedback, comments. It is much appreciated. And now we will have staff present to us implementation overview on the UDO. And Allison, if you want to kick that off for us.
Sure. So Shannon is joining us today to talk about what is happening between August 22nd and June the 1st. There's a lot of work to be done. I'm not sure if Shannon has been before you all in recent times, but just as a reminder, Shannon is the division manager for our land development division and planning, but planning also provides oversight to the Charlotte Development Center, which was formerly called the One Stop Shop, which is a 6 and 7 department collaborative effort to improve permitting efficiency. And Shannon is responsible for the day-to-day oversight of that as well. And so lots and lots of work on getting ready for June 1, and she's going to provide an update on that.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is a one-slide show, and really what it's trying to demonstrate at the top, kind of the transit line, those are really what we call the external key dates for customers that relates to what is external facing. And then really what's below the dash line is kind of behind the curtain, what we're all interdepartmentally working to coordinate. So of course, I think you all are fully aware of that first date. And then we have created in September what is referred to as the UDO portal. We have set up a UDO implementation slide. So it was previously UDO, look at what's being adopted. Now, when you go to UDO implementation, you'll see a portal. The portal exists similar to what existed for comments, but this is a place that we've been intentional about casting all the questions that are coming in via email, phone, so that we can have a centralized place to see what are pain points in the UDO, where is a reoccurring question, are there any themes in terms of how people are experiencing their review and working with it, maybe even on site design. So there's a team that takes questions from the portal. And as you know, the UDO put all of the regulations that were separate and apart for trees, for stormwater, for zoning, for subdivision. So when it comes in the portal, it goes behind to each of those various administrators who are the subject matter experts with those articles, so that we can start to not only see what's being asked, but also take that information and train the staff who will be aligned with the UDO. So this is a walk and talk type of effort. The next thing we've rolled across was what was a snapshot that created hopefully some transparency for folks on if you're trying to come into the permitting process, that we'll be taking those applications on the effective date of the ordinance. It also helps clarify some statutory vesting that exists for what offers permit choice. In other words, if you start with the rules that are in place, you can keep those. The UDO don't put a reset on you and make you erase and start over, or you can be midstream and decide, I want to switch to this. So it gives some predictability so that as folks are anticipating when they might develop, this hopefully gives them the windshield of seeing how do you manage the timing for your project with clear expectations that you don't get caught and not know that that's going to be effective on you. Do you want to come in before it changes? It's really trying to get predictability out for folks with timing. It also has a piece, and this is on the UDO implementation, that talks about when rezonings can be filed and some cutoff dates that are important to a lot of folks who are contemplating that process. The big thing we hope to launch in January of 2023 has been branded as the Udo University. This is really intended to be at multi-levels, whether that's the community, understanding how it's going to impact those standards in existing neighborhoods, some of the new zoning districts, helping translate that in a more on the ground. If you're looking at an expansion on your property, a tear down, how does this work for you? The other piece that we're trying to catch up with is all the design consultants who develop and design projects that go through the permitting and land development process, that we think this is also a good time. They're using this fall season to read and get caught up. But at that point, hopefully looking at some sites, test driving those for, do we all see and are we all in alignment on how this applies, and do we mutually understand that this will be a series of topics working through trees, transportation, zoning, and having very structured sessions that we can invite Q&A and do that in a real-time teaching framework. Lastly, of course, the effective date is what we're all racing up to with these efforts. Below the line, briefly just touching on what's in the boxes. I won't go through all of it, but it's important to understand, as much as staff is working to become acquainted with what's in this UDO, because it's a major shift from where we are to where we'll go. And I can only emphasize that work has not slowed down the entire time in the development center while this was all happening above us. So now it's the plane has landed and trying to get everybody in it and say, okay, we're getting ready to go for the ride of our lives. In order to pack the cargo, we need to do a development toolbox, which is in the UDO. There are a number of items that are outside the ordinance. That will be the new tree guidelines. We're doing a substantial update to the Charlotte Land Development Standards Manual. If you're not familiar with that, I've always said that's the recipe book. Tells you how to build a street, how to plant a tree. There's a number of standards that need to be updated there. GIS, of course. These are our current zoning districts. These are our new zoning districts. This is the streets map. A lot of tools that we use and refer to. We need to get a refresh to get that caught up to be current. Process improvements. A lot of new processes will be developed for single family lots so that we can catch the stormwater permit and catch the tree requirements that have changed. And our zoning board of adjustment will go to a UDO board. So we'll be switching gears to set that board up. And today the ZBA hears the zoning variances and appeals. The UDO board will hear all variances and appeals from all those articles. So getting that board commissioned and set up with our existing ZBA, we're in a transition to work with the attorney's office to formalize to that board. Technology, we primarily use Excel. That's where all of the applications come in. We're doing a major update to set up new records and get cleaned up to be ready to offer service through the portal for applications on the effective date, well before for rezonings, because that filing is prior to June 1st. And then I've basically said how we're trying to frame our UDO support to our customers and to the community, and working in real time to start to engage, but also anticipate how we'll do that in January. So this was really just intended to give you all a snapshot of what's happening above sea level and below sea level. And if there are any questions, I can certainly take some, but probably we'll be back as we get deeper into the review of the ordinance. We have said this is a living document, so text amendments and where we're finding in our review what needs to be cleaned up or clarified, we'll offer transparency back to you all as we find that.
Thank you, Shannon. I'm very fortunate to have had Laura and Team UDO really do a deep dive into what you're reviewing here. At the retreat, they did that. So this is a more of a refresher for the commission. But I imagine that we'd be seeing a lot more of you in the next couple of months. So
Yeah, this won't be the first
welcome.
and last, I'm sure.
Welcome. Do we
Thank
have
you.
any questions for Shannon?
Yeah, just wanted to highlight for the Udo universities, definitely communicate with us. We just committed in our work plan that we're going to be at these meetings. We're going to be doing this. Definitely communicate with our leadership so we can make sure we get.
Yeah, I think that'll be a great partnership as you all are making that quota to help bridge what we're trying to get out there and let you all be a liaison. Appreciate that.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I'm really excited to see the UDO University. The fact that you have, well, 101 classes all the way up to graduate classes
Yeah.
for the developers. I think that's amazing.
Thank you, Courtney. Anyone else?
I have a quick question, and just because I'm new, can you maybe share with me offline kind of some of the information that's leading up to the UDO board, where it fits in the process, what those rules are,
Sure,
appointments, et cetera?
sure, absolutely.
Any other questions for Shannon? Short and sweet. Thank you.
Great to see you all. Thank you.
Thank you. And Dr. Robin is up next. Allison, are you teeing off or?
I'll just say really quickly, I think we've mentioned the annual report and the implementation dashboard, but we thought it'd be important just because they were recently released and you've got a new commission to make sure that you're all aware of just what we're doing to highlight the successes that we've had, and then also forecast what's coming up next. And then I know we all like data and wanting to understand what information is out there in order to measure ourselves. And the implementation dashboard is a really good place to begin that discussion. So I will turn it over to Robin.
Thank you. So I am Dr. Robin Byers. I'm the implementation manager for the long range team. I am going to let Gretchen Flores start us off. She's really been leading the implementation dashboard piece of it. So she's going to handle that. Erin Hinson is the person on our team who is really focused on the annual report. She unfortunately has jury duty today, so I will be taking over that piece of the presentation. So I'll turn it over to Gretchen to start. Thank you, Robin. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Gretchen Flores, and I work with Robin on the implementation team. Just a little bit of housekeeping before I get started. You should have swag bags, so I hope you enjoy those. If you did not get one, I think we may have one extra one, so I can get you one at the end of the meeting. Next slide, please. So we wanted to give you just some context for the work that we've been doing and how it all fits in together with the comp plan. The comprehensive plan provides our policy guidance, and it's really guidance for growth strategy based on an equitable way. The comp plan was developed along with the implementation strategy, which basically tells us how we implement the comp plan. And then the manuals and metrics, which is the document that tells us how we measure that success and the progress. Essentially, the annual report and the implementation dashboard provide a feedback loop tied into the comp plan. So the annual report and the dashboard are new accountability and feedback tools to allow staff to see how the policy is actually working and do we need to make some adjustments or changes. The annual report keeps us accountable to the implementation policies, and together each piece provides the needed feedback that we need to ensure that we're progressing in the way that the comp plan is envisioning. So all of our work on the implementation team essentially comes from either the implementation strategy or the manuals and metrics document. Next slide, please. And next slide. So I'll cover the actual data dashboard, or I'm sorry, the implementation dashboard, and then we'll talk about the format for it. The dashboard really has our 10 goals from the comp plan. The manuals and metrics, as I mentioned earlier, is really the component of the comp plan that lists the objectives for each goal, and then for each objective, we have a metric essentially in the manuals and metrics. And it's what we should use to measure whether we are meeting that goal or not. The dashboard is a public platform, which means that anyone can access it. And we see most of our audience being elected and appointed officials, as well as neighborhoods, residents, and then developers. The dashboard was developed using existing data from the quality of life dashboard run through the city. And so far, we have about 25% of the data. Our goal over the next 4 years is to continue to collect data and really establish our data sources to be able to figure out what our baseline numbers are. Once we establish that, we can then review that and create realistic targets for where we're going in terms of measuring how each goal, how the city's doing for each goal. Next slide, please. So the next 2 slides are really just doing a walkthrough of what the dashboard actually looks like. If you look at the bottom of the very bottom of the screen, you'll see 10 tabs, which is basically 1 tab for each goal. Across the top, you have the metrics that are being measured for that particular goal. And again, this one for goal 1 specifically, we have 10 metrics. However, because we only have around 25% of the data for all of the goals that we're measuring, this one in particular, we have 4 metrics that are being measured that we're providing data for at this time. And those measures across the top will change as you click through the map. On the right-hand side, on the left-hand side, excuse me, you have the actual goal number and the language from the comp plan, and then some additional information on how the metrics actually relate to the goal. The map is done by NPA, which is Neighborhood Profile or Planning Area, and it is navigable by either clicking on the map itself or typing in an address to find your data, basically for the area that you'd like. Next slide. And then finally, there's additional information that you can click on to the left hand of the map. And essentially, this gives you all of the technical data for all of the technical information for the data that we are actually reporting on. Like I said, this is about 25% of the data. Our goal at the end of 5 years is to be able to take a look at all of the data that's collected based on the metric for that particular goal, based on the metrics for that particular goal, and be able to assess by goal citywide how we're really doing. And I will turn it over to Robin. She'll go over the annual report, and then we can take questions at the end.
Thank you. You can go ahead and progress through the slides, 2 of them. In your swag bags, you guys should all have a copy of the annual report.
And so we do have page numbers in here, so you guys can flip through if you want. So our annual report is one of those pieces from the implementation strategy, tools that we've created so we can keep ourselves accountable, keep you guys accountable, keep council accountable as well. So we're all kind of talking ourselves and keeping ourselves straight through all of this. The annual report itself does focus more on the policy, which ones were enacted, which ones haven't been yet. The first piece of this annual report, this is our kind of visual table of contents. So this is how the report is structured. This is on page 5 of your report itself. So our vision at the beginning of the annual report, we will talk about the vision from the comp plan. Right now, it might still be in our heads because it hasn't been that long. But after we go down this road, about 5 or 6 years, we'll probably need to remember, okay, what's the vision saying and where are we supposed to be going with this? So we'll have that at the beginning. Our next section is our impact. That's where we're going to look at the progress for the past year and the projects that we've done, again, over that past year. And then path forward, we're going to highlight things that we know have big milestones or big impact in the following year. All right, you can go ahead and click forward. So this one is page 19 through 25 of the annual report. This is part of the Our Impact section. We do list out every single short-term policy. I say short-term because there's over 300 policies in our comprehensive plan. There's 55 short-term policies. And so instead of making this annual report 100 pages, we've decided to make it significantly shorter and just focus on the short-term ones at this point. So you'll see the goal icon, the policy number itself. So that'll refer to the policy number in the comprehensive plan, the description, and then you'll have a status icon. And that will let you know if it's in progress, complete, and ongoing. So there are some things like policy recommendations that talk about something being in the UDO. Well, that has now been adopted, so that is completed, but it's ongoing because we'll keep looking at that through the years. We also have complete and we have forthcoming. And so there's a couple, I think we have 4 forthcoming policy recommendations. While those are short term, a lot of those need a piece to happen first before we can really tackle that next piece of the policy. So overall, we have 3 out of the 55 that are complete. 7 are complete and ongoing. We have 41 in progress. That means we're actively working on those. And 4 that are forthcoming. The other thing I want to highlight here is that all of the policies in the comp plan are not administered by the planning department itself. And so we do have various partners. We'll talk about that a little bit at the end, but all of these status updates have been verified with the different departments as well. Another piece of our impact that I'll talk about real quick is on pages 26 through 34. You'll see specific projects highlighted. These range from the Envision My Ride CATS project on page 27 to coordination between different departments. So we have the affordable housing provision with TOD, that's part planning, part housing, and the success that we've had with that, that's on page 26. To some county initiatives. So the other thing I'll say is sometimes we focus a little bit on the county or on the city. And so we really brought the county into this as well. And so they have priority zip code programs with their public health department. That's on page 29. And so you'll have those different projects highlighted as well. Go ahead and flip for me. And this is just an example of what Our Future looks like. And so this highlights, again, future initiatives that will see some big work moving forward in the next fiscal year. This is on page 35 and 38. So as you guys can see here, there's discussion on the Joint Use Task Force Implementation Subcommittee. I'll touch on that in the next slide. We have an ETOD study. We have at the bottom, I don't know if you can see it because of our Zoom videos popping up there, but we do talk about the UDO adoption and implementation because that is big and key. And we also have highlighted comprehensive transportation review. This was a new thing with CDOT that relates to a lot of the rezonings and by right projects. Go ahead and move forward. So that was the annual report piece, just kind of summing this all up for you with coordination. The large majority of the implementation work for the comp plan is coordination with other departments in the city, with the county, some nonprofits in the area as well. And so what we did for this first year, the dashboard, we share data resources. A lot of those are housed in the INT department. But that doesn't mean that INT is the only one creating that data. That data comes from various different departments. And as we build out our dashboard, we're going to look for partners that have other data that collect consistently, so that we can make sure we have that data over the long term. We'll continue to do that. The annual report was a little bit different this year. We ended up spending a day or two, Aaron and I, having different departments, 15-minute meetings. This is what the annual report is. This is what we're going to ask you. Do you have any questions? Then going back and sending out a lot of forms that everyone had to fill out. And so kudos to everybody else for filling out all those forms and getting it to us in time so that we could produce this for you. But this really is a citywide effort. It's not just planning, even though right now it's housed in planning. And so it's been very successful. This is a snapshot of page 38 in our annual report, just of how many people we reached out to. Future coordination. In a previous presentation I made to you guys, and I think also to the planning committee separately, our implementation strategy talks about having an implementation subcommittee, or sorry, an implementation committee that is public facing and also staff resources. And so we've split that. The planning committee will be the public facing side of it. And then we're going to use joint use task force. We've created a subcommittee there focused on implementation efforts. That's what we will use moving forward to get feedback on the metrics in our dashboard, and to help us collect some of that data, as well as getting feedback on status updates and upcoming projects for our annual report. And with that, any questions or comments?
Thank you, Dr. Byers, for the presentation, for the swag material, for the annual report printout. You gave us a lot, and I would imagine that as we digest this information that's in this brochure, we may have some follow-up emails. So if you could please make space and prepare for that. And then
Absolutely.
for right this second, any questions? I think we got Commissioner Lansdale. Anyone else on board, and Commissioner Gusman? So Commissioner Lansdale, please.
Thanks. Just an easy one. What's your horizon on the horizon look like? Is that like at the top of the hill, or is that the sunset, or is that Bailey's comment, or
The horizon of what?
on the horizon slide?
Oh,
For the joint use task force implementation subcommittee, the comprehensive transportation plan review, and the ETOD. I was just curious as to what is your on the horizon look like for that?
so I will say the comprehensive transportation review is actually done by CDOT. So planning's not necessarily involved in that. And ETOD, I think we will probably be a partner in that, but that's really run by different agencies as well. So through our implementation subcommittee, we like poke them every 6 months or so and say, hey, what's going on? What are the updates? Other members of planning are involved in those processes as well, but I can get you timelines if you would like them.
That's okay. Thanks.
You'll see it next year. I know that. It'll be in here next year.
That, anyone off of that? That actually, I was going to point out that this is our first year rolling out both the dashboard and the annual report and everything. There are a lot more that we will know now that we know what we need to be collecting, as I understand it. And this was great when it came out of, I guess it was a month and a half ago, something like that now.
August, yeah.
I immediately shared it out to a number of both city and community people. Thank you. I did have to caveat to a number of them that, no, this isn't going to be everything. We have a lot more robustness that's coming. And you touched on that, definitely in that question. But thank you. And I would encourage all our fellow commissioners, spend a little time with this. Think about, even if you're on zoning, think about, use this tool, use the dashboard to take a look at where that is happening, what's happening. How is it, what we're getting ready to do going to impact it? Try and use this tool to help connect all the dots on how we look at where we're going with the UDO to get to the comp plan. So I just encourage everyone to do that.
And if nothing else, as we are more public facing, you will be getting questions that, and using the dashboard as a resource. So knowing how to navigate it, knowing how to tell people how to get there and how to navigate and use the dashboard will be key. So the first step is to be familiar yourselves. Commissioner Seeley.
To that point, let me just make a little PSA that our website does have a how-to video. We have it in English and in Spanish, so it's already on there. You have to go to that page before you can click into the dashboard. So please review that, and that'll help answer hopefully a lot of questions. If you guys get repeated questions from the public, I'd love to hear it, so we can make sure that we can proactively add some things and make it a little bit more user-friendly as we move forward.
I will say that Axia Charlotte has reached out to me previously about teaching them how to use certain city dashboards, especially Acela. So this could be a really good opportunity for community engagement. But also, I love systems like this, so I'm very excited to nerd out on it and learn it. And you can definitely count on me to tell people how to use it. So
Sounds good. Yeah, if you have those dates, let us know and we'll see what we can do. We have a lot of public engagement coming up, so we'll just strategically
We'll
plan
be
that.
seeing a lot of you, Dr. Robin.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. And last but not least, we have Kathy with us to talk through Community Planning Association, I'm sorry, Community Planning Academy update.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Kathy Cornett. I'm the Community Planning Program Area Manager, and we are in the long range planning division. And I'm going to turn it over to Maria Florent, one of our staff, along with Madison Pleasant, who's really been managing our Community Planning Academy, to kind of give you an update on it. I know that several of you on this commission have participated in it over the years. I think we started the academy, and Maria will probably go into this in more detail, in 2016, and we've had maybe 4 graduating classes, but and we have a lot of plans to grow it, but there's constraints, basic constraints probably for everything in life, and that's just time and money, staff time, and then funding. But we do have a class that has been a 5-session class. We started in August, and we have number 4 tomorrow night. And, you know, if there's any interest, we had a lot of staff that were interested in it, so we've been streaming it for staff only. So if you all are interested in that too, I'm sure we could provide you that link as well. But with that, I'll turn it over to Maria.
Hey, good afternoon. Yeah, as Kathy mentioned, my name is Maria Florence. So I'm gonna give you a little overview of 2040 Planning Academy. That's the new brand name. It was formerly Community Planning Academy. Next slide. Thank you. Yeah, so for anyone that's not familiar, 2040 Planning Academy is a program that is intended to teach residents about how planning, to teach them about the role that planning plays in building communities. It's a free educational program. Yeah, it was first began in 2016, and as Kathy mentioned, we've had 4 classes, and we just brought it back this year after the pandemic. And so on each slide, I kind of have a picture of each of the classes that we've had up until now. Next slide. And yeah, so the goals of the program are to educate the community, to empower them and teach them how they can participate in future planning processes, and to kind of build relationships between staff, the class, and for the class to build relationships with each other. Next slide. So our applications for the program opened in June, and they closed in July. It was about a month-long process. We received over 150 applications, and we selected 30 students for the program, which has been the same for the previous years. And that selection was based on a scorecard and some questions that we asked in the application, and kind of like a geographic distribution of each of the applicants. The applicants that were not selected, we're adding to mailing lists so that we can make sure that they're engaged in future opportunities as well. Next slide. So applicants are from all over Charlotte. You can see here, we have the map that kind of shows the geographic distribution. And the class includes neighborhood leaders, advocates of bike and ped infrastructure, affordable housing, equitable development, ADA issues, and more. Some of them are students, including I think some that are in school for social services programs, and also some planning and design related fields. Some of them are longtime residents, and then some of them are more newcomers. But all of the people who we chose were really open to, one of their main goals was to kind of take what they learn and take it back to their communities and networks and share that information. Next slide. So the program schedule. So our first class was an intro and history of planning. Then we had community planning, transportation. And then tomorrow we have zoning and rezoning. And then our final class will be urban design and community character. For this year, all of our classes are being held at the Cordelia Park Pavilion. In the past, we've held them at the Malin Adams Pavilion near Freedom Park and at the Urban Design Center in South End. But each class has different speakers from the different departments to talk about the different topics. We have workbook readings there. Each student is provided a binder that kind of has all the readings and the information for the class. And then they have a group activity and some homework. And then just based on kind of the discussions and questions that we receive in each class, we provide additional resources for the class. Oh yeah, so and at the end of the program, all the class materials will be available online, and then we'll be sharing it with, sharing all those resources with the 150 applicants that also applied that we couldn't, accommodate. But that includes presentations, workbook, and class activities. And for the future options, which are the future plans for this, we're exploring ways to help alumni stay connected and learning with this program, and then with future planning processes. And I think that's it. Yeah, any questions?
Thank you so very much. I don't remember the course layout for when I was in Planning Academy, but I remember that rezonings and zonings were only touched on. So I'm glad to see that there was a deeper dive for this class. Any questions on Planning Academy?
I'd like to volunteer to assist with the zoning meeting tomorrow evening. My schedule is open. If you would like, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions or even just help out, be the friendly face of the zoning committee.
Yeah, you're welcome to come and join us.
There was a thought to possibly have more Planning Academy sessions per year. Is that still in consideration?
I think as Kathy mentioned, I guess at the moment, we don't have a timeline for when the next one will be. And I think just based on budget and staffing and the community area planning coming up, we're not sure when, but yeah, I think we've talked about it. I don't know if Kathy wants to speak any more to that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. And at a sharp, any other questions on Planning Academy? None? Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. And at a sharp 1:48 p.m., as we are nearing the end of our agenda, I want to do two things. Number one, read to and bring recognition, I guess, of an act that I decided to take last week. I think it was Wednesday, as I was probably finishing edits to the draft of the work program for distribution. And I thought that, we need to talk to people about our work program, and we need to make sure that we share this information, hoping that we adopt it in October or November would be the latest. So as I'm playing these thoughts through my head, and I'm driving from meeting to meeting, I was leaving a meeting, and it was in time that I was coming through Uptown when Board of County Commission meeting was beginning. It was about 5 o'clock, and I quickly typed up a note to them. And normally I would always distribute information ahead of time if I am addressing anybody or dais as a member of this commission, and I failed to do that. In light of that, I want you all to be cognizant of the comments that I made at the Board of County Commission meeting last week. So I'm going to read them out for the record and for your knowledge. Oh, this is super tiny. My fake seeing glasses. Candace, do you have that to put? As Candace is working on pulling that up, I did forward a copy to she and Allison and Mr. Vice Chair after the fact. Again, normally I would always do this in advance, but the thought process was just to share with them some thoughts. Good evening, Mr. Chair, Madam Chairwoman, and members of County Commission. As most of you know, my name is Kiba Samuel, and I serve as Chair of the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Planning Commission. I am before you tonight to provide a reminder to the board and to share some information with the board. I may also have a request or two. The reminder to the board and for the benefit of the public, the Planning Commission is a liaison and community resource. Members of the public as well as the board may lean upon members of the Planning Commission when they have inquiries on any land use and land development matters. We encourage members of the public to contact us directly using contact information found on the city's webpage under the Planning tab. The City of Charlotte's Planning, Design, and Development Department will embark on a community area planning public engagement campaign at the top of 2023. The community area planning process is one of the most important phases of implementation of the Charlotte Future 2040 Comprehensive Plan, and public engagement is pertinent to this process. Members of the Planning Commission will partner with staff to amplify the engagement strategy and complement staff's efforts. One of tonight's asks is of each individual county commissioner. As you communicate with your constituents, particularly when you host your town hall events and other functions in your districts, please consider having Planning Commission members as your guests to share information, answer questions, and capture public comment on the community area planning process. Second item I'm here to share tonight pertains to the Planning Commission's fiscal year 2023 work program. This coming Monday, October 10th, the Planning Commission will likely adopt a final version of our work program during our monthly work session. Of note, there are two items that I'd like to highlight for you. One, the Planning Commission will explore feasibility and pursue the work of establishing a permanent environment and sustainability subcommittee of the Planning Commission. This to assist in keeping a focus on those issues as they pertain to matters within the Planning Commission's purview. The Planning Commission's charge is defined in an interlocal agreement between the city and county. The IA has not been updated or revised since 2009. I later discovered that 2013, there was a small minor edit. At current, we are working with the city's attorney's office to ensure our compliance with the IA should we establish such a subcommittee. Due to the age of the last revision and also to make space for the legally binding establishment of a Planning Commission subcommittee, I ask that the Board of County Commissioners make space for future discussion during this fiscal year to examine proposed amendments or revisions to the interlocal agreement that may be brought before you by Planning Commission. I know I've said quite a bit here tonight, and I do plan to follow up with you all via email in the interim and for your reference and record. Madam Clerk has a copy of these comments for you. Thank you for your time this evening, and thank you for all you do in service. Kiba Samuel, Chair of the Planning Commission. Again, wanted to read for the record what those comments were for your knowledge. My apologies for not being able to deliver this information to you ahead of time. I saw an opportunity to share some information. I took it. I'm sorry. A Top Gun reference came to mind just now when I was about to say that. If you're a Top Gun fan, you know. But that will likely never happen again. I do not feel that there was harm in comments. There were no promises delivered. There were no specific actions being requested or being taken. The only asks, there were only asks of the board, no commitment from Planning Commission. I hope that the comments are acceptable to this dais, and I am open to any feedback that you all have as of right this second.
Thank you for sharing it with me, and I supported your decision and your thinking and your expedient response to an opportunity as it arose.
It was very spontaneous. It happened to be the public appearance portion of the meeting, which is not, I think they do that every other meeting and not every meeting. Again, I saw an opportunity. It was fresh in my head because I had just kind of scrubbed the draft, and I took it. Thank you for allowing me to share that with you. And last but not least, it is not an item on this agenda, but it is something that I need to do. So I need a motion to amend the agenda to make space for an appointment to Carpo. I need that as an agenda item so it can be documented. And it has to be a motion made in order to make an amendment, and that motion needs to be have a vote.
Motion to amend the agenda to include an appointment for Carpo.
Second.
Motion by Gusman, second by Blumenthal.
Mhm.
All in favor, say aye. Any nays? Hearing none, the floor is open for nominations for appointment to Carpo. I hope that I don't have to identify anyone.
I'd like to nominate Terry to Carpo. Representative.
Thank you.
Nomination for Commissioner Lansdale. Are there any other nominations for Carpo appointment? Okay. Any other nominations for Carpo appointment? And going thrice, any other nominations for Carpo appointment? Hearing none, we need a motion to close. No, I'm just joking. This is not an official vote. All in favor of having Commissioner Lansdale serve in the ex officio role on our Carpo board, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Commissioner Lansdale. We look forward to the information that you may bring forth. And I think that I will connect. It used to be lit. It's not, I don't, who's Oh, okay. Is Mr. Cook? Okay. So we'll make the connection. And on third Wednesdays of the month, I won't suggest that you alter your schedule to attend. I think my commitment to Carpo was that November would be the likely timeframe in which they would see a replacement appointment. So if you have space in your schedule to attend this month's meeting, thank you. But if not, they are prepared for November. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. And with that, is there any other, oh yes, we need to review the future schedules meetings. Our next meeting, as I previously mentioned, thank you, Candace, for following me. Our next meeting, as I previously mentioned, is for this body is November 14th. If you guys have not already accepted the invite that Siobhan sent that updated us for second Mondays instead of first Mondays, and for members of the public, please be informed that the Planning Commission's monthly work session is henceforth and temporarily going forward established as second Monday of every month. As we explore rules of procedure, what I imagine may happen just to prepare us for a future change, because again, it's likely going to be at will of Madam Mayor and Council when this meeting can happen. So that's my preface for temporarily. So as of right this second, our monthly work sessions will be second Monday, at least for the foreseeable future. Planning Committee is Tuesday, the 18th. Executive Committee is the 17th. For zoning committee, you guys are with council that night as well on the 17th. And then in November, zoning committee's work session, November 1st. And this body again meets on the 14th. Ooh. Thanksgiving is the 24th. That's not on the board, but. Okay. Any questions, any comments on schedule? Planning commission members, none? Okay. That concludes our work session for today. And did we meet on the dot? That's pretty talented. You guys are talented. Thank you so very much. Dr. Byers, Kathy, Gretchen, everybody, Shannon, everybody, thank you so much for joining us today. Candace, thank you for figuring out our technical issues, and motion to adjourn is needed.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.